Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it a minute or two before we start the panel discussions. I will say probably very lively panel discussions today. So while we're doing that, let me introduce myself and then I'll make a few housekeeping comments before we begin. I'm Tracy Berry. I am the Vice President this year for this Council of Competitive Intelligence Professionals. And I am really excited about the panel today. Before we get started, let me just remind you guys that we do a survey for each of our webinars and we take the feedback really seriously. And our biggest challenge is usually after webinars that the number of surveys we get is minimal. So we have a minimal way of gauging how we're doing, how it could be better, the content, the speakers, et cetera. So I would just ask you to take the time. There aren't many questions. It'll only take a minute or two. But if you could give us your feedback, that would be awesome. And as an incentive for all those who do complete the survey, they are put into a drawing for a book every month. And this month's book is a doozy. It's from CI fellows Craig Fleischer and Babette Boussanon, and it is their book, Strategic and Competitive Analysis, Methods and Technology for Techniques. Sorry, let me start again. Strategic and Competitive Analysis, Methods and Techniques for Analyzing Business Competition. So, like I said, you complete that survey, you're put into a drawing, and if you're lucky, you get a book. So, all right. Let's see. I see the numbers are increasing by the second. Let's go ahead and get started because I think this is going to be a very engaging, candid, and lively talk. I would like first to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your current role, your background in CI in general, and maybe a little bit about where you think your strengths are or your area of expertise. So, Angel, let's start with you.
Thanks, Tracy. Hi, all. I'm Angel Venable. I'm currently Senior Product Marketing Manager at OpenLoop Health, and I've been responsible for building CI programs from scratch, as well as rebuilding CI programs as companies evolve and grow and scale, and primarily within the B2B SaaS space, but also into health technology. And my background has included primarily competitive intelligence and enablement, and ensuring I'm supporting go-to-market launches as we launch new products into a competitive landscape.
Great. Sam, how about you?
Thanks, Tracy. I am Sam Niro. I run the competitive intelligence program at a company called Parloa. I am an accidental marketer. I started my life as a graphic designer, quickly fell my way into all things marketing, and then discovered that competitive intelligence is a full-time gig, and boy, do I absolutely love it. I have been in the adjacent customer experience space or directly within it for going on 8 years now, and I'm extremely passionate about this space. It is insanely competitive, and I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my career.
That's great. Okay, Alysse probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to let her introduce herself all the same. Alysse?
Well, I am very similar in Sam that I am an accidental CI person. I was a system engineer at Lockheed Martin 100 years ago and fell into CI very early in my career. Right now, I'm the VP of Competitive Intelligence at Palo Alto Networks, a leading cybersecurity firm. I have been doing CI in cybersecurity for nearly 2 decades. Actually, no, it's been over 2 decades. I'm not gonna lie, it's bad. So, very passionate about this topic in particular, being a woman in tech and a woman in CI. So, thank you, Tracy, and the fellows for including me in the panel today.
Awesome. And I see we're already getting questions in. So we will not run out of time without anything to talk about, I am sure. Okay, let's start with our first question. This may be our only question. We may go down a rabbit hole and never come back up again. But first off, let's talk a little bit about mentorship. Maybe you could share a little bit about an experience you've had in either mentorship or maybe if failing that or instead of that, talk about a pivotal moment in your career that helped you grow as a CI peep. Sam, let's start with you first.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I've had in a couple companies now is there's been like formal mentorship programs, whether it is within our specific marketing org or with other folks. And I've noticed that if I'm lucky enough to be assigned a mentor who is like one of these superstar women, that one, I'm like super excited about it. 'Cause like, how do I be you when I grow up? Doesn't matter what ages look like because I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up at the end of the day. And that's really given me this opportunity to ask some of those questions that you may not want to ask on just a regular one-on-one or to one of your peers, like, hey, how are you navigating this? Or, hey, there's this specific person I've noticed really loves talking over me, and I can't get a word in edgewise. How have you navigated that? And I've gotten back a lot of really great stories of like, know your audience. Here's how to start tailoring and managing some of those personalities that may be more likely to talk over women in general, and really giving me that foundation of like, here's how you walk in the room with confidence and know that you're showing up in the best way possible.
Great. Alysse, how about you?
Well, I am also a very big proponent and supporter of mentorship, both being mentored as well as being a mentor. I think that's the pay it forward that we all in women and just in everyone in general. Once you get into a role for any length of time, you should be contributing back to people who are either new in profession or new in their career. But I'll pivot on the career moment, the pivotal moment that really basically framed exactly how I lead CI teams. It was literally, it was one boss back at Lockheed when I was starting out it was price to win in competitive intelligence. No idea what the hell I was doing. Literally shouldn't even have the job, to be honest. But Bob Dawson was the best boss I ever had. He would put me up in front of the VPs, the heads of programs, and I would be telling them they had to shave like $2 billion off their proposal price in order to win. I mean, this was controversial stuff. And my hair was a lot blonder and I was a lot younger. And it was really hard in a Lockheed Martin defense environment to say those kinds of things. And Bob, every time they would ask a question, they turned to Bob and asked Bob the question. And Bob would be like, no, she owns this. She's going to answer it. And he put me in charge, and I had the authority and accountability for it. Now, he never ever questioned anything I said or how I answered a question in the audience. But I guarantee you, as soon as I sat back down on my desk and it was one-on-one, he'd call me up and say, what the hell was that? Why did you do that? You got to do this, 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 this. But he always coached me one-on-one, never ever in a group setting. And that stuck with me for 20 something years. I've been leading that way. Never, I always want to make sure your people look as amazing as they possibly can in front of your stakeholders, and then you coach them one on one. So that's my career moment, I think, is the most pivotal in my life.
I think that's also great career advice. Start
Yes.
early. Okay, great. You've both touched on something that I want to follow up with, but Angel, I'm going to, conclude this discussion with you. Go ahead.
Sure. It was one of the pivotal moments for me in my CI career was really at my second role as being a product marketing manager. And there was a gap in not really fulfilling the competitive intelligence need and enablement for our sellers. And I started building out kind of just from scratch battle cards. And my manager at the time, Jen Good, who I followed for a couple of careers, she said, you're really good at this. I want to focus on competitive intelligence. Let's move stuff off your plate and then you focus on that because I see there's a strength in that. And so that really helped me establish being a CI professional, and having that person kind of say like, you're really good at this, and being able to see the opportunities that were there. And I think in learning from her too, I learned about how to be more strategic and just not the doer component. 'Cause I think there's a really big divide on competitive intelligence and being the more tactical and strategic and being able to marry those two together. So that was a really great opportunity for me to see someone who has been in product marketing for longer than myself and being able to marry those two components together.
Great. And I think that's how a lot of people fall into CI, especially these days. They start out as a product marketer. And as more and more questions come into a company or into that organization about compete, someone eventually has to take it over, right? Because it becomes the more you deliver, the more they want. So now that's really interesting. Okay. I thought about asking this question later, but I'm going to ask it now because Sam and Alysse both brought up elements of this. And that is about communication, and communication with the senior leadership as a woman, because I think there are some nuances there. So it's two parts. How do you communicate as a woman in what's normally a male dominated senior leadership area? And then two, are there unique traits to communicating with a senior woman versus a senior man? Could be a little hot topic here, but let's run with it. Alysse, let's start with you.
Of course, you're going to give me the hot topic first. I knew that was happening. Um, okay, so I think, there's a couple questions here that you asked. And so I think the first one is how do you communicate to a stakeholder audience that's largely male, you're a woman and you're in CI. So you're already naturally bringing friction to the conversation because as a CI professional, regardless of gender, that's our role. Is we're supposed to question, we're supposed to be the skeptic. So you're already providing that friction, and then you're a woman on top of it. And depending on cultures, depending on the culture of the company, the culture of the human being you're trying to influence, these all and their personality all play a role into it. So one of the key things I learned early in my career is I got obsessed with personality profiling, like Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders and all that fun stuff. Anyone who's been on my teams for the last, how many years I've been leading teams, that you're probably all sick of this crap because I do it all the time, but I'm obsessed with learning about my team. But then I started like, how can I apply this to my leaders and start manipulating them psychologically, figuring out what their strengths are, what their disc profile is, what their Myers-Briggs is, so then I can then, really tailor my message to them. So that became kind of my mantra is how I communicate, I match their style. I go where they are. And that can be hard, but you got to really do the homework up front to know who these executives are, what their key pain points are, how they communicate, ask questions, ask people around them, their circle, to figure out how they work and how to best, basically manipulate them into listening to what you have to say. That applies to everybody. That is not a woman man thing. That is literally advice for anyone in this profession because we have to influence that authority. So you do that through psychological manipulation, in my opinion. Now, for talking to a woman versus a man. Now, I've been in tech and defense for my whole career. So I don't have a lot of women leaders that I've had to influence, like women stakeholders, which is sad in itself. But there's really not that much difference, in my opinion, in how I communicate to leaders. And I'm going to say something probably pretty controversial, and you can kick me off the Zoom if you'd like. It's fine. But from what I've seen in tech, and Sam and Angel, I would love your thoughts on this too, is the women that are senior leadership, generally speaking, in tech, have emulated the male counterparts so closely that they're really not seeing a huge nuance in how you'd communicate to them because they're already emulating those skills and not skills, but those personality traits because they needed to fit in themselves. So that's my hot take that it really doesn't change how you communicate because they've been forced throughout their careers to alter their personalities and their communication styles to fit in and to move themselves up in the company. All right,
And
I'm waiting for the Zoom to shut me down.
not at all. I'm nodding. I'm nodding. I want to follow up on something you said with my personal experience, and that's around personality profiling from a CI perspective or from a executive communication perspective, actually. I actually, at one point, was certified to administer the Myers-Briggs test, type indicator, MBTI. And I was hired by a very large venture capital company for a big consulting firm who would meet with the Steve Ballmers and the Bill Gates and those types of people and other lesser known, but almost equally important people. And in addition to doing an executive profile, I inferred from all the information I gathered what that person's likely communication style was, what their Myers-Briggs type was. And from that, I could suggest how they would prefer to be communicated to, how they were likely to communicate back. And that was of extreme value to very high level people. So don't knock it. I mean, it really is very, very helpful. And each person is unique. As you get to know the people in your C-suite, you might even ask them what their Myers-Briggs type is just in conversation, and then you'll know. Okay, I'll step on that. And Sam, let's go with you.
Yeah, so I love this question because it's one of those things that I've slowly figured out that I have to match people's energy and very much understand like how their clock ticks. And one of the things that really comes to mind for me, I got absolutely raked over the coals doing a win-loss readout in a past life, and it was all men on the executive team. I just got absolutely like cornered by the head of sales, and it was absolutely brutal. But coming out of that call, I'm like, all right, So I know for the next one, here's what I'm going to be asked about. Here's where I'm going to be challenged. Let's grab some extra data points to really be like, hey, we can't argue with the data. This is not a me thing. This is a company thing. And that was really helpful for softening the cornering of me in that conversation. But I also think when it comes to what Alysse said about the women that are in these leadership roles having this gravitas and the energy behind them, like that intensity allows me to then mirror their intensity and be intense like that in these types of conversations. And I think being able to mirror what we see men in leadership doing or what we know commands a room has been really valuable to pick up and go, okay, I know this specific leader is very much high energy. I got to match that energy. I know this guy's going to ask me like 20 questions and take me down rabbit holes. So maybe I should meet with him a little bit earlier, give him the pre-read, get some of those questions out of the way so we can focus on the topic at hand. And then also really looking at, all right, here's everybody in the room. Here's where I know I'm going to run into some hiccups. Can I plant a seed with somebody else that I already have a great relationship with to help drive this conversation forward instead of getting pulled down those rabbit holes? So I definitely adjust based on my audience, but it's not necessarily like men versus women. It's more so that personality management and knowing where you're going to find traps in some of these discussions with your leadership team because it's so easy to go down these rabbit holes and you can spend so much time on something that doesn't really matter when you're sitting there with really great insights that you really want to get to.
Great. Angel, how about you?
Sure thing. As you probably have noticed if you're watching this, I look a little bit different than the other three panelists. So I do want to add an additional layer that I'm a Black woman in CIA, and that's a very rarity as well. I do think that as far as communication style, it's really around building my brand. And so what I like to do is I leave video messages because it does two things. It helps break down the communication of maybe potentially interpreting my tone in a different way if I'm doing writing. So I like to do video messages or voice notes so they can hear my voice, they can see my hand gestures, they can see my patterns. And as Sam and Lisa alluded to, focusing on the data, I really focus on the data. I don't necessarily match people's energy. I like to show up with the facts and say, here's where we are, and here are the things we do, and here are the challenges we have to face, and here are the opportunities we have. So just really laying it out to them. I'm a very much kind of just a facts person. I like having the data to back up my opinions. So that way, if they have any questions or are going to dispute me, I have the data proof to point it at. So I think just really being able to come to a meeting and be at that presence that says, I'm an expert in this space. Regardless of my visual or how you perceive me to be, that's more important to me than trying to match an energy necessarily, as well as being able to stand up in a room. And I've been in startups where I've literally been the only woman in a room, let alone the only Black person in a room. So being able to be in that room and have a voice is more important to me than trying to divvy up what personalities are, because really what I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm ensuring the business understands the opportunities that are ahead and what competitor landscape is involved so that we can make the appropriate decisions from that.
Excellent point. Thanks. Before we go off that topic, I'm looking at some of the Q&A and the comments section, and Derek mentions, let me read you Derek Johnson, by the way. In terms of communication with stakeholders, empathy is an important trait to exhibit. It can be a secret weapon. Empathy often comes a little more naturally for women than it does for men. Would you agree or disagree? And if anyone has an example of how a high empathy quotient or EQ is such an advantage in this field. Alysse, I saw you nod. I'm going to go with you first.
Oh, Derek knows me well. He knows that I have zero empathy. On the Myers-Briggs, I am falling off the F. I have zero F, all T. That's why I'm laughing. No, but that's something I had to learn. Because self-awareness is key. You got to know where your weaknesses are. And my weakness is I have literally no feeling. So I hire people who have feeling to fill in that gap for me. Say, hey, you should, instead of saying I want this and demand this, you should maybe say good morning first, things like that. But on the empathy, like I actually 100% agree with this statement. I laugh about it, but it's very important. Empathy is getting to where people are, putting yourself in their shoes, making sure you understand their perspective, and not just coming at it from only your lens. If you really want to influence people, you have to really get to the understanding of how they're feeling, what they're experiencing, and how best you can help them. Now, I think technically women do have in general more empathy than men, but I am a shining example of that not being true.
Sam or Angel, what do you have any
I
ideas?
absolutely want to jump in on this one because coming into the customer experience space and more specifically contact center, like it is very well known that it is heavily skewed towards women, which for good or worse, like it's just the nature of the game. And I do think we inherently are more empathetic because we want to be nurturing and take care of people. But at the same time, I've noticed that I have my line of empathy where, yes, I will be nice. I'll meet you where you are. I will help you figure out how we solve this together. And then there's other folks that are like, hey, do we have a battle card on this? And I just literally will send them a link and say, did you try checking here? And there's zero empathy on that front because you know what to do. You're just being lazy. Like, let's not go there. So I think there is that balance of applying empathy where it makes sense and making sure that you are not then railroading yourself by being overly empathetic or, yes, of course, I will do that thing for you. Like, say no. Be empowered to do that and be able to know that, like, we can be nice, we can be empathetic, but at the end of the day, like we have other stuff to do. And if you're wasting time being too helpful, which I am so guilty of, it's not even funny, uh, you're going to end up in a point where you're like, oh man, now what am I going to do with myself?
Yeah, okay. I see Laura Young jumped in and said empathy goes with interest and understanding where your audience is coming from. So good point, Lori. Angel, I saw you nodding when I asked if you had something to say. So let's go.
Yes, and before I became into product marketing and into CI, I was in customer facing roles. So understanding the customer's pain is definitely a throughput and through line through my career, and just really being able to articulate that in different capacities has definitely been something important. So really understanding from that perspective of how are we addressing the customer's needs, their buyer's pain, and then bringing that internally and making sure that if I'm training on sellers and saying, here's why you need to drive in on for discovery questions, really understand their pain and get that empathy through that way. So I think it comes through with enablement training is making sure that people are being aware of driving home, here's why you need our service or product, but understanding the why and why they're even looking and what that challenge is going to be, particularly if you're thinking about competitor displacement campaigns and thinking about if you're already using a competitor, why are you unhappy with them? Really dig into that. So having that understanding comes from empathy.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go off script, lady. So this is a question that I just came up with because you all touched on this, and it's not about being a woman necessarily, but it's more about tailoring communications to each individual stakeholder, right? You can't have a cookie cutter approach in CI because each of your stakeholders looks at it from a different angle, needs it for different things, etc. But sometimes, like I'm going to guess, Sam, are you a team of one?
Sure
Angel,
am.
team of one?
Team of one.
Okay, so you're stretched thin. Alysse has got like a brigade of people working for her, so may not apply to her so much. But just talk briefly. How do you do it? What are some of the challenges? And maybe an example or a best practice or a lesson learned, something like that. Sam, let's go with you.
So I think for me, one of the things that I've learned over time is there are certain types of personalities that tend to fall into certain roles within the organization.
Mhm.
For product, they are not going to get a lot of flowery stuff unless I really need to like butter them up for an intense ask where I know they're probably going to be very reluctant about it. Then maybe they get some of the flowery stuff, but I'm very direct with them. I will give them the like no holds bar answer of like, yeah, here's the situation we're facing, and you have to make the decision. Here are some options I recommend. Let me know what you're thinking. And then with the sales folks, like I go straight to the heart no matter what. I'm like, here's how I want to help you make more money. Here's how I want to help you get something in your bank account. Here's how I want to help you win that really large deal that everybody in the company's been talking about. And they're very responsive to that, regardless of where they sit within the pecking order of the organization. Because even the CRO, like making them know that they're going to look good by helping me out with something or having this information, it works great. And then with the marketing team, it's really about inspiring action and also being aware of what's happening and not just living in our little bubble of like, here's what we want to do, here's what we think's the right choice, and really going like, hey, here's the broader narrative and here's what we should be capturing on that. Here's where we can interject with our own point of view. So thinking about what's in it for everybody and then adapting based on that has been really effective for me. And then also really just figuring out like Angel mentioned, building your brand within the organization, like that is one of my number one things I do when I first enter is making sure people know who I am, know what I'm about, and know that like I am here to help drive us forward as a company. And that's been really helpful for people knowing they can come to me, being able to ask questions and knowing that, hey, we have this thing. It might seem a little controversial when we put it forward. Can you help me get the data behind it to back that up? And to help craft that narrative so we are successful in saying, like, here's the situation. We do have to do something about it. Here are the options of if we don't do it, this is the risk we're taking, and we have to negotiate with that. And that's been a really good way of also then continuing to build my brand because we build these narratives together and it turns into this like really great flywheel effect for me.
That's great. I want to follow up with something too, because it's like a possible blog topic or something. Do you find as you move from company to company that your communication stays the same or changes depending on the stakeholder? Like marketing, you address one way, sales, you address one way, the exec team, you address one way, or does it change dramatically from company to company? Sam, if you could just follow up with that.
So for me, I tend to keep it as much as like me as possible. That's actually, we can talk about AI later, but that's one of the things I hate about it is it doesn't sound like me. So I bring me every single time. There may be tweaks in like, hey, this seems a little bit more old school, like chill with the emojis because I really love emojis and like bringing the undertone of things I'm communicating without actually saying, and I hope that other people understand it. They probably don't. But really making sure that my communication style is mine, but also adapted enough so that people take me seriously has been one of the key things. So I do not change it very much at all.
Okay. Angel, if you could follow up with my original question about, addressing stakeholders or providing them intel in different ways depending on their role.
Sure. I tend to keep it. You start with the long form of just having out everything mapped out, and then I cater it to the audience. So I know executive leaders have limited time, so I'm giving them the bullet points. And if there is a call to action or a need to make a decision, I'm calling it out in bold. But it's pretty short and tight. Similarly, with I'm going to product, similar to Sam, I'm giving them the evidence, proof points, everything they need to say like if we got a win-loss interview back and where they didn't like our product, I'm giving that blunt information to them so they have that and have the proof points behind that. And same with marketing, it's more about understanding the strategy and if this involves our strategy and just ensuring that if there are changes we need to make, I'm calling that out, and then they have the long form to support that as well.
Okay. Alysse, I'm going to tweak yours a little bit and ask you, since you do have a large team,
Mhm.
probably a combination of junior and senior professionals, how do you coach them on this, on learning how? Because I think it's a skill to be able to tailor your communication to your stakeholders.
Yeah, that's tough because it's going kind of almost sometimes against your gut instinct, who you are as a human. And you got to look at yourself in the mirror every day. So I first of all tell my team, never ever put yourself in a position where you're becoming such a different human in your communication style that you don't like yourself. So like for me, I'm extremely direct, and so I'm usually the one that comes in a meeting or like a situation where I have to go nuclear. They pull the Alysse button. That's the nuclear option because I can go nuclear pretty freaking quick and I'm happy about it. Whereas if I were to ask someone on my team who's more, I can think of a bunch of people on my current team that would be very uncomfortable delivering that level of aggressiveness, assertiveness, whatever it is. So it's a matter of matching and I'm going back to personality again, but that's such a big piece of it is
Mhm.
matching the personalities with the right communication thing. So I have folks that are highly, highly technical. They're delivering, competitive intelligence on the daily to our product leaders, to our engineering leaders, et cetera. They're in the weeds. They know exactly how to communicate. They know how to get they can go deep, right? Then you have another layer. I'm very fortunate to have a layered team, but I have another layer of people who up level those messages to make it to a higher level audience. And then those people have different, I've matched their personalities with the personalities of the people that they're going to be working with. So I spend a lot of time, probably more time than most, trying to match the human with the people they have to work with and the culture of those different teams.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I just want to pull up a couple comments. Terry Teal says, and this is going back to the empathy part, the male definition of empathy. There are only four answers to any question. And each of these four is multiple words all run into one. Yes, sir. No, sir. Sir, I do not understand. And no excuse, sir. So it's actually interesting, Terry, because you look at that more from like a submissive or subordinate role, which as women, we don't really think of men that way. So at least I don't. Okay. And then Lori says, if you are able to take advantage and ask the stakeholder how they prefer to receive the information, data focus, just bullet points, et cetera, mentors and champions can help. That's a really good point, Lori, because again, it's knowing your audience back to communication style, right? How they prefer to receive their information. Okay, let's go into AI, ladies. Let's just discuss a little bit about how it has impacted you, your approach to it, what you like or hate about it, maybe like and hate about it. And then I'll follow that up with another question about AI. But Angel, let's start with you.
Oh, where to begin? I see it as a tool. It's that always on engine that can help scour the web, scour resources to find competitor information when I'm on vacation. It's something I can set up as an agent to help support sales, if they're in a different country or a different continent and are able to surface information when I'm asleep. I think the challenge is if people are over rely on using AI, you're essentially limiting the headcount of your organization. And I think if you are an up and coming CIA professional, that's something to be aware of, and that you more likely will be a team of one because they're going to be relying on you to go, oh, go use Claude to support. That's your other teammate. It's not another human. So being aware of how that can potentially impact your headcount and also your scale of your organization, because they're going to be relying on you to use AI tools to support that. So being aware of how you're using that. I think also too, it's important to think about don't offload strategic decisions to an AI tool. Own the strategy, make that your own voice, because then that way, anything that comes out of an AI portal, you still have some ownership of that versus feeding it all in and generating a strategy that is coming from other sources.
Great. Sam, how about you?
So I work at an AI company and it is all over. And it's funny because I was at an in-person event a couple of weeks ago. There was a poll done and they asked like, what product marketing capability or requirement is going to be automated by AI in the next 3 years? The number one answer was competitive intelligence. And boy, did I have feelings about that and may or may not have slightly gone off on everybody. But anyway, I digress. The thing that I love using AI for is gut checking myself. So for example, I have had blog posts handed to me in the past. I'm like, this is way off base. Am I crazy or is this actually off base? So I use it as gut checking and then also for really just going out and grabbing all of the different pieces that I want for something, being able to do that. And then, hey, here's my outline. What am I missing? Is there anything that I could add to this? So some of the more like really basic, help me think through this process. Help me think about what my next step would be. Hey, if I say this is a potential risk, like what are the trade-offs or reactions I can expect from this team? So I've been using it more as like a collaborative partner than having it like fully automate anything. And that's primarily because what was it? Maybe like 18 months ago, I asked Gemini about a competitor that I thought was highly likely to be acquired. And Gemini told me they were acquired by Domino's Pizza. And that is one of those things where people talk about hallucinations. Having that example is why I tell all of my teams, go ahead. You can try and automate as much as you want. If you have a question that I don't have time to answer, great. trust but verify because you never know where it's getting this information from.
That's great. Alysse, let's hear it.
Oh, well, if anyone has ever seen me talk in the last, I don't know, 4 years, I've done maybe 15 panels on AI and CI and AI and all that. And, I've evolved a little bit in my thinking, but I'm still that old person screaming at the cloud, telling it to go away. I'm closer to retirement than I am to my first job out of college, right? So I'm, an older veteran on this panel. And the way I look at it is it's a useful tool. I use it for automating weekly reports, like my stupid status reports I hate doing. For self-assessments, hate those. Just did one 2 days ago, got it done in 10 minutes with some Gemini gems. And by the way, the comment from Rose, yes, Gemini sucks. Um, so I'm more of a Claude user. I'm appreciating more of that. It seems like it's a little bit closer to what I need, but I'm using it to more like build metrics and build tools, not to do a CI. And my concern as I approach, going off into the distance, into retirement and leaving this profession behind, what I'm concerned about is all the new people and all the people who are younger than me or new to the profession who are going to rely on AI a hell of a lot more than I did. They're going to lose problem solving. They're going to lose critical thinking. They're going to lose the ability to actually develop a strategy, a cohesive thought that terrifies the crap out of me for this profession. I am forcing my team, whether they like it or not, is that when you get a news article, if you hit that AI summarize button, I'm gonna go nuclear. I need you to read what actually happened. I need you to distill it in your brain, lock it in, because something over here is gonna happen. AI may not know about that other thing, but if it's in your brain as the human, as the smarter entity, you're going to tie those two things together and develop a trend or a theory or a prediction. But that's where AI is going to fail us, and if we got to be able to have those skills. And now I'm going to add another layer on this. I know I'm going on a soapbox, but Tracy, I warned you. If I'm on the cyber side, on the security side, so I'm looking at this from two angles here. AI, the usefulness, and AI, the terrifying thing that can leak all of your company secrets out the damn door and you are done. So many, go to Reddit and go look at some of the threads about what happened recently on some of these companies with massive AI breaches. If we jump all in on AI too fast without putting guardrails and security mechanisms in place, and no, this is not a pitch for Palo Alto Networks, but holy crap, I am terrified from so many angles. So this is where I should have brought the bourbon. I'm really upset that I did not bring that for this call. But yeah, this is a hot topic, and I think you've gotten very animated responses from all three of us, Tracy. So well done.
Okay, well here I'm gonna hit another hot button related, and you've touched on it, Alysse, but I'm gonna nuance it, and that is how do you educate your stakeholders? It's really about defending the profession of CI, right? Like educating them on why AI should never replace CI, to Sam's point, because of the unique needs and skill sets. Like you touched on critical thinking, things like that. How have you been able to, or have you been able to convince senior leadership, your stakeholders, et cetera, that CI, you can't replace CI with AI? Alysse, I'm going to let you follow up with that.
Well, I like Sam's example, just pointing out the stupidity that comes out of this stuff. No, I think it goes back to the earlier conversation we had about, empathy, personalities, and really becoming that strong communicator. That's something that, yes, you can get into, in a Claude chat and ask it questions and try to understand what is going to happen and maybe write your 5-year plan. You could do that, but where you've lost now that, that's not giving you that communication, that human connection. And if we can provide that human connection with a thing I like to talk about, primary intelligence, which I'm scared might go away. The whole idea of, oh my God, talking to someone and collecting intel about what's going on and doing win-loss interviews. If we automate all that and make it all AI-ified, that's losing the context. It's losing the hand gestures, the sarcasm, all those things. And so that's where I think we need to really amp up our profession, is be better communicators, really double down on primary and show value that we can layer the human piece on top of all of the random bots that are doing their thing off in the computer land.
And are you finding it harder to get approval for tools and things like that because people are pushing back and saying we can do that with AI now?
Yes, there's so many examples I could talk about how we think we can just build something that's already existing. I won't say specifics 'cause I currently work at this company, but some of them are hilarious. And I love the ambition. But not everything can be replaced. And sometimes, especially when a security perspective, if you're talking with customer data or you're talking about anything that's confidential employee data, you can't be building that stuff internally unless you darn well know what you're doing, because that stuff leaks out, you're in a major breach, and now you're gonna piss off a lot more people than just your own company. So that does become a challenge. I think security is a huge element you all can use in your conversations about when there's tool pushback. You can say the tool that I'm using right now has been used for however long, and it has all these security checks and balances. You guys build something new and juicy and fun, and all the models change every 5 seconds. How do you know that tool is going to work 3 minutes from now after you push it out and you publish it? This tool over here has been built and designed to work. And maybe at some point, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we can get to that point where we can easily build internal tools, but we are not there yet. So I would double down on the security element if you get pushback.
Okay, Angel, go.
Oh goodness. I think that the biggest thing, again, I lean back on and I hit on strategy. Um, if you're relying on AI to develop your strategy, you're essentially saying, I don't want to be differentiated in the market. You're giving away your secrets to a larger engine that potentially could be sharing that out to your competitors who do using the same tools. If you want to be unique and stand out in a crowded landscape, and all of us probably work in landscapes that are evolving and have been, as companies get acquired and things shift and they add new tools and services on, all of that means that you need to evolve your strategy and not rely on a platform that's doing that for you. So you need to take your intelligence and your human intelligence and be able to understand the landscape, how things are changing, what the potential shift could make if, a competitor gets acquired or maybe they raise another round of funding or go public. What does that mean for your organization? That should be something you should be owning. You should be having those conversations and be able to articulate that with your own voice and not use an AI tool to do that for you.
Okay, Sam?
So I think the big thing for me is really outlining like there are things AI will never be able to do. And I think I'm a little spoiled because the industry I'm in, there are people that have literally built their careers around specific tools and specific competitors. That type of knowledge that gets passed around because it's also a super, and I hate using this word, but it's the most accurate, incestuous industry. Everybody just trades around employees all day. We all follow each other. It's just what happens. That tribal knowledge in the background is something that we probably will never be able to actually like inject onto a chip somewhere. If it's possible, sure, I would love to upload part of my brain to do that for me, to just be there. But it's never going to be at the level where you can go, oh, okay, I heard this from Joe over here. Sandy told me about this 3 years ago. Oh, wait, these are super connected. Here's the actual signal that's happening behind the scenes. That's the sort of like dot connecting that I just don't see happening. And I've been able to have these discussions and say, like, this is why, yes, I can automate the little bits and pieces. We can give it, a go for some things, but really getting into the weeds and thinking about the positioning and how you are talking about your company, like I completely agree with Angel and Alysse equally. Like, you just can't trust the AI to do it. It's great for like the little things, but man, does it lack the critical thinking skills and the like ability to take your hypothesis and actually see the signals for what they are and turn it into something meaningful. Like, it can't do that. It likes to tell you, like, yes, of course, you're absolutely right all the time. Great. Maybe I want you to challenge me. Or maybe you missed that this article you claim is about company A is really about some completely unrelated thing. And that lack of filtering is such a huge gap for me right now with the AI that I'm like, cool, great. This is a nice starting point. I'm gonna go back and get back to what I was doing and make sure that at the end of the day, we have the strategy in place, we've thought through it, and maybe we've got checked ourselves with the AI because then I'm still ticking the box of, are you adopting AI? Yes, yes, I am. You may not love the way I'm doing it, but I am doing it.
Great. Awesome responses. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the comments before we move on. So Claudia says, Angel, I like that point you made. AI is not there to design the strategy. And you did touch on that a couple of times. So I love that. Rose Beverly says, and that's why you don't use Gemini, especially for research. Claudia also said what Alysse said. I'm sure. What Alysse said, always. um, Mia says, I'm seeing older workers lose critical thinking skills because of AI usage. That's an interesting take, Mia. I don't know how you lose critical thinking skills. I'm seeing it more as in it's not being taught anymore. Younger people don't automatically go to it, but that's an interesting perspective. Emily says, Amen, Elise. We need the knowledge for ourselves. We need to catch what AI misses. So, definitely as a follow up to what Sam was just talking about. Jamie says, I'm on the same soapbox, Elise. We can share. So, Elise, whatever your viewpoints, looks like you're getting a lot of agreement. Lori Young says, we have to be able to communicate to leadership what the value of AI is. Leadership sees saving money or money savings rather than the loss of analysis, insight, and so what. Yeah, I think the so what, now what is the element where that just can't be replaced. Megan Young says the environmental impact of AI is concerning as well. Yeah, something we don't think about enough. Rose says AI won't replace us. Our roles are evolving. Jamie says, how to educate? Yes, how to educate stakeholders is a huge question every day. Ellen Naylor, too many think CI is data gathering, not enough strategy development and foresight. That's part of what we need to sell. Absolutely. And okay, we're at the end there. So there's another question from the audience that is around the lines. This is from Nishant. Was there a moment when you consciously began to see yourself as a leader rather than only as a strong CI practitioner? Good question. Oh, I guess I got to pick somebody. Angel, let's start with you.
I think for me, and it's why I like to kind of brand myself as a revenue driving product marketer, is driving revenue and being able to see how I connect those dots and be able to say, we won this deal because of my competitive intelligence awareness and being able to strategically help you win this deal and have an actual metric. So one of the things I like doing, and this is part of building my brand in an organization, is tying my abilities to sales metrics because usually product marketing CIs are kind of squishy and there's no like hardcore metrics that we are driving towards for an OKR. But I can tie it to my sales and revenue peers and understand how I'm partnering with them and how that helps them win more deals and how that wins deals for the business and how I can help with that.
Interesting. And a follow-up related question. How do you instill those metrics to be able to tie your actions to specific revenue generation?
Sure. One of the things I love doing is just really being able to partner with them on particular deals where I know there's competitive play involved, and I can go into the CRM and see this is how much this is worth. I'm influencing. If the deal
Mhm.
is worth $500,000, I'm influencing $500,000.
Right. Okay. Great. Sam, how about you? When did you know you were a leader, not just a practitioner?
So, first, ditto to everything Angel just said. Like, we drive revenue. That is my number
Mhm.
one KPI. Win rate is my secondary, and I could go on a whole spiel about that. But I think for me, and it's kind of funny because thinking about this now, and being a team of one multiple times, when I first started in CI, I was absolutely blessed to join a existing team of two. So there were three of us. It was awesome. I miss those guys all the time. So Axel and Holly, if you're out there, miss you. But I think for me, it was coming into my role at Parloa. I have always said, oh, yeah, I run the competitive intelligence program. And I caught myself a few weeks ago doing a onboarding with our new sellers. I'm like, I run the CI program because I am the CI program. And I think it's that distinction of yes, I am one person, but yes, I also own this entire thing end to end, and it is my baby, and I help drive all of the pieces of it with, of course, help from the field because CI is a team sport at the end of the day. I think it's just really being able to walk in the room and know, like, this is my thing. I completely own it, and I get to show up and own it proudly. That I think has actually been like the mental switch from me just being a practitioner into like, I lead this function. This is my function, and I am really excited about that.
Very cool. Alysse?
My answer is way, way, way less interesting. I knew I wanted to be a leader when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, when my parents would tell me what to do, or when we had a school project, or when there was a kid who was crying, I felt I had to go fix that. And I had to go, I was like a fixer. I just wanted to like lead everything and make sure I was in charge of everything because I absolutely hate being told what to do. So naturally, I ended up in a leadership role. So it's not as nearly as interesting as Angel and Sam. Sorry.
So, you being a pain in the ass as a kid led you to becoming an extraordinary leader in your adult life. Okay. Before we move off, Angel, there's a follow-on question from Laura Young. Angel, how do you put value on CI prevention? Oh, how do you put value on CI preventing a bad business decision?
I think it's kind of the same way. I mean, I think about from the win-loss perspective and understanding if I'm summarizing and being able to articulate, here's why we're losing deals, that is going to inform business decisions. Because I'm saying if we're losing deals and we've lost $2 million in the past, each one of 2026, what are we doing for H2 to change strategies? That will hopefully inform the business decisions to make those changes, whether that's through further revenue enablement or changing out messaging and positioning. But all of that ties back into understanding why are we losing this money and how can we remedy that?
Great. Okay, a question from Q&A. What advantages, if any, would you say women have in CI? For example, being more scarce in our field or industries, would you consider it an advantage to stand out? Curious on your thoughts. This is from Emily Pilar. Sam, let's go.
This is a really good question. I selfishly, I guess, do think that women have just a better natural curiosity about us where we want to know things. People joke that like women are super gossipy and all of that, but in the reality of it, I think it's more about curiosity. And I think that's an innate trait that we do really well. I think the other thing about being a woman in competitive intelligence is there really aren't that many of us. It's very true. We are like kind of rare and scarce, but the community of us and like being on this panel is one of the reasons why I love it so much. We really are here and show up for one another. We are constantly networking and being like, hey, how's it going for you at work? How are you managing this similar sort of situation in your current Oregon role? And I think it's being that smaller community is what makes it so special because there's so many people that want to mentor, that are looking to find mentees, that are wanting to continue to advance us both as a professional career track as well as women in B2B tech or other spaces that are very much male dominated. And that sort of just community, I think, is the best part of it all.
Alysse, how about you?
I think it's a huge advantage, to be honest, because we're already let's be honest, we're the weirdos in the room. We're the ones on the outside looking into the company and being that skeptic, the one that's going to call BS when it needs to be called. So we're already looked at as being the weirdos. So why not be completely different? Different perspective, different, viewpoint, look different, act different. Sometimes that can be a great charge of energy when you're really trying to influence, let's say, product strategy, company direction, M&A decisions, some of those big ticket items, being that different voice can change the energy in the room and can get people to think not just like everyone else. Like the group think is the thing that we can break. And by being different and and embracing our differences can actually break down some of those barriers and get people to respect this profession, respect what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Great. Angel, follow up?
Yeah, I think in kind of going back to the point initially around kind of that Elizabeth around the like CMOs who may be women and kind of emulating their male peers because that's how they kind of learned up coming up the ranks. I think in a similar way, it is our opportunity to shape what we want CI to look like and emulate that for ourselves as well as for our broader community. So Sam's point, the empower comes from outside of our respective organizations. It comes from the community of being part of a CI professionals network and being able to exchange information, exchange skills or job opportunities, things like that. That's really where it comes in. It's really beneficial. It's not necessarily that I'm going to stand out in a room because you still have to stand on your own. If you're a team of one, you have to make a much bigger noise than other people who come in. If you're head of revenue, you already have a presence around you. If you're just a team of one, you have to come in ready to go go and energize that room and make them understand and make them care about why CI is important. And here's how it drives the business. So tying it back into the business, tying it back to revenue, tying it back to the OKRs and goals, those are critical to be aware, not just show up in a room and I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, I'm a trans woman, just be in a room and be able to stand up and articulate your points and then bring that gravitas with you. And then that way you're a respective peer and then share that out to your community to build that mentorship network as well.
Okay. So let's transition this question to a very similar but different one. If an up and coming woman in CI were to ask you for career advice, what would you offer? And would your advice be different for a woman versus a man? Alysse?
Juicy one. I love this one. I have mentored many people in my career, and both women and men. And the core, communication principles, understanding your audience, understanding how to communicate, all that stuff is all basic. But where I do pivot a bit is on women who question themselves. There's so many women who are, because I think Angel, you said it well, is like we're naturally curious. I think Sam, I can't remember who said it, but we're naturally curious and we're asking lots of questions. Sometimes we're never satisfied with how much information we have. I think we overcompensate quite a bit, especially in male-dominated industries and professions. So we feel like we have to know 15 times more than our male counterparts just to have a seat in the room, and that can slow us down a bit. And so I try to instill confidence in the women. Men, generally speaking, come in with a lot of gravitas, a lot of confidence. I'm gonna go freaking be CEO in 5 seconds. Whereas the women I mentor are like, should I say this? Oh, I don't know if I should really talk in this meeting because I might really irritate this person. It's very different community. Like, it's how I have to more coach up the women and coach down the men, I guess, is like a very
Interesting.
simplistic way of saying it.
Great. And just cognizant of time, we got 3 minutes left on the webinar. So Angel, in 30 words or less. I'm just kidding.
I would not mentor men or women differently. I would really focus on understanding what your niche is going to be. So if you're going to be a B2B tech SaaS, I can coach you on that. If you want to go into something else, I can try to give you like the parameters and understand like here's some great people that you talk to instead. But also really being able to understand what value you want to bring to an organization that is your own, not relying on whatever tools they have in place. So what you're showing up, not just from your interview conversations, but what you're going to bring to that conversation. What's your strategy? What approach you're going to take to CI that might be nuanced and differentiated?
Super. Sam?
So, two things I'll touch on. One, I think, like Angel just said, like knowing where your niche is, if you can be really passionate about the space you're in, I think that changes not only how you're seen outside of yourself, but it makes work so much easier when you're like, yes, I want to sign on. Yes, I want to find out this thing. Oh my God, I just found this out. Like, this is incredible. That's the sort of stuff that keeps me going every day. And then the other thing that may be a controversial take because it sounds like super outdated, but you got to find that one thing that hey, I have a big meeting coming up. I'm going to throw on my cape blazer because it makes me feel like a bad bitch. Like that's the sort of thing. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You find that one little thing. It could be a hype song. It can be something for your outfit. It could be you treat yourself to an iced coffee before these types of things. Having like that little moment that hypes you up, I think has so much extra energy it can bring to it. And it really does help in the simplest of things. And I think that helps build your gravitas, gets you that energy you want, and brings you into the room with a lot of swagger.
Awesome. We've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank Angel, Sam, and Alysse for not only being on our panel, but offering really candid, insightful comments. I hope that the men on this webinar, as well as the women, have some takeaways from this. I wasn't really sure about this topic when it first came up and I agreed to moderate, but man, I think we knocked it out of the park, ladies. So again, Angel, Sam, Alysse, thank you so much. We're getting lots of comments in the chats now. Amazing webinar. We rock. Thanks for open and honest conversation. And yeah, I think we're at time now. Thank you again. Everybody have a great day. Don't forget to fill out the survey, put in your name for the book, and everybody have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this together, Tracy. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.